Hello again. I know it's only been a week since my last edition, but as I said last week, I got behind on things, but I wanted to keep up my plan rather than skipping a month. This month's theme comes from an article that I wrote for Better Farming Prairies, and it's timely for the harvest season. Do you bale your straw or keep it? I'll get into more details in a minute, but the basic concept is to ask whether it's helping or hindering you. If baling will remove soil armor and allow rains to erode your land, leave it. If it's causing issues at seeding time, bale some of it. So let me introduce myself. My name is Scott Gillespie, and I'm an Alberta-based author, podcaster, and independent agronomy consultant with expertise in climate-smart agriculture. I provide advice-only agronomic services to my farm clients, offering unbiased recommendations free from product sales. I share science-based practices that promote environmental stewardship and farm profitability. So there's many ways to take in this information that I'm presenting here. It's the same content on each, it's just in different forms. There are two newsletter options. There is a MailChimp one that just comes to your email, and there is a LinkedIn newsletter that will also send you an email to notify you of a new one, but it is all set up on LinkedIn. Then I also put the podcast up on YouTube, so there's a video there. And this is the only one that has a little bit of difference because at the end, I've been putting in some drone video from my scouting over the summer. Otherwise, it's the exact same content. And then podcast version is on every podcast player that you can think of. You just have to search it, or you can come to my website, www.plantsdigsoil.com, and there will be links to the platforms there. So, too much of a good thing. When to bale your straw. Baling straw might seem like an obvious don't for soil health, and after all, it's another export of carbon and nutrients beyond the grain that you harvest. But the decision is more nuanced and often depends on your soil type, climate, and residue load. In southern Alberta's dry brown soils, yields are low, straw is thin, and every bit is valuable. So it slows raindrop impact, it helps water to soak into the soil, it reduces evaporation, and it protects against wind erosion during intense Chinook winds. In contrast, higher yielding irrigated land, or the moister black and dark brown soils of the central and eastern prairies, can produce so much residue that it delays spring warming or it hinders seeding, making removal a more viable option. Now, nutrient loss from a single year's baling is small because the amount that is lost is spread over 3 to 5 years. So that's the time that it takes for the straw to be fully broken down and released back into the soil. So one time in 5 years won't add up to much, but repeated removals add up over time, particularly in low organic matter soils. Now, to me, straw's greatest short-term value is surface armor. The long-term contribution to soil organic matter is less about residue breakdown and more about the root exudates that are feeding the soil microbes from the living plants. So you still need to replace the nutrients, but when the nutrient levels are maintained, microbial activity can keep building the mineral-associated organic matter that forms the soil structure. So strategic occasional baling, especially if followed by targeted nutrient replacement, can provide benefits without undermining soil health. Zone-specific residue management may allow farmers to bale only where residue is excessive, and it might allow you to leave it where protection is needed the most. But in the end, the straw is a resource. Use it first to protect your soil and remove it only when it will help your cropping system. So please check out the full article, and the link will be in the episode post, and that will be linked wherever you're watching or listening to this. And as I always do, I put in a few articles that I've come across that usually they relate to what I've been talking about. They are a little in-depth and scientific, but I think you'll find them interesting. The first one is Nutrient Strengthened Link Between Precipitation and Plant Growth Study Finds. So when I first read this headline, I thought, well, duh, of course, that's true. More nutrients, more water, make more growth. The core of their study, however, was looking at whether plant diversity could overcome the lack of either. And it couldn't. It comes down to the basics of what plants need: moisture, nutrients, and sunlight. Now, we're not limited by sunlight in the dry regions like southern Alberta. Every bit of residue matters for moisture retention, soil protection, and long-term nutrient cycling. This study findings reinforce that precipitation, or in my case, stored soil moisture, is a major driver of biomass production, but that also nutrient availability shapes how responsive the plants are to that moisture. So those results show that when nitrogen, phosphorus are not limiting, biomass responds more strongly to rainfall. This is essentially the same dynamic that I described in reverse. When we remove the nutrients without replacing them, we risk reducing that responsiveness over time because the soil system becomes nutrient limited. We can replace the nutrients with synthetic fertilizer or compost or manure, but we can't capture and hold more water without the straw there. The other article that I found that relates to this, effects of fertilizer application strategies on soil organic carbon and total nitrogen storage under different agronomic practices, a meta-analysis. So a global meta-analysis on soil carbon and nitrogen storage confirms a key point for residue management. Nutrients are the engine that keeps the soil health building. The study found that mixed fertilizer strategies, so combining manure and mineral fertilizers, had the strongest effect on storing both soil organic carbon and total nitrogen, particularly under continuous cropping in subhumid or semi-arid climates like what I'm in southern Alberta. Now for straw management, it means that when residue is removed, simply replacing the NPK with synthetic fertilizer may not fully maintain the soil's carbon and nitrogen balance. Now that's a little bit different than I argued, but another way to look at this is that adding manure covers many of the micronutrients as well. So if you're only replacing with NPK synthetic fertilizers, then in time, these could be limiters. Our soils are geologically young, so these micronutrients may not limit us for a while, but there's still something to watch. So thank you for your attention. If something resonated, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Also, sharing this episode in your social networks, whether a post or to a small group of your friends, colleagues, or clients, is very much appreciated. You can also support me by picking up a copy of my book, Practical Regeneration, or reaching out for agronomy support. And everything that you need to know or find is on my website, www.plantsdigsoil.com. So here's to growing more, believing less, and always digging a little deeper.